I've got my rear caliper brackets back. Took a bit longer than expected, but there we are. And let's see how well they fit. So I've got some longer mounting bolts, longer than the original back plate for the drum would have been. Let's see if it goes on. And okay, and the answer is yes, but not quite. Right, I shall just do a bit of scalloping of my own, I think. Right, I've done a bit of scalloping on here. It's a rounded edge because it's kind of a bell shape on the back here. And it now goes on. Okay, so that's my bracket solidly mounted. How this caliper goes on. Right, here are my caliper mounting bolts, which I suspect are a little bit too short. Definitely a little bit too short, as I suspected would be the case. In fact, it looks like maybe 4 or 5 millimeters worth of spacing. Now that could be added on, welded on washers on the front face of the mounting bracket. That might be the way to go. Right, I've got some spacers which definitely prove that the thread in here is going to be too short, but just for a trial purpose, right, well that's on, and it looks pretty bloody good actually. Right, what's happening here? Oh, I think that's because the car's in gear. Yes, very good. And I can report that the disc actually sticks out slightly from the pad area, so it fits very well. And I suppose the icing on the cake is, does the wheel go on? And yes, look at that. So I need 3 to 4 millimeters spacer and longer mounting bolts than I've got. A tiny bit of sculpting was needed. So here's the wheel fully on with the caliper fully fitted. I might possibly get the wheel spacer thinned down to push the wheel slightly in. That's something I'm thinking about, but it's okay because there's plenty of clearance inside the wheel here, so I can do that if I want to. So loads of clearance for balancing weights and anything like that. The brake pad fits, and yeah, just a very small, in fact this is the one for the other side. I've already marked out on it where I think it's likely something might need to be beveled, and the brake cable and hydraulic pipes face forward, going up the trailing arm. Now that would be different on a actual MGC, obviously, and for that situation it might be that you want to swap the calipers over left to right, which would tend to make the cable and the hydraulic pipe face the other way, and obviously line up the axle, but that's a mere detail, I would say. So yeah, it goes on very well. The only thing I definitely need is a longer bolt for the caliper itself. Currently it's just barely on, so just get some longer M12s for that purpose. Anyway, as I mentioned, I've already marked out the other side. I'm not going to try this on, but there's hardly any room on that side of the car to get the camera in, so I'm just going to report back. I have no anticipation of any further problems. Right, that's it then. Rear discs on my Gilbern Invader. It uses an MGC axle, and for those who are new to this, these brakes are from Vauxhall Insignia. Unlike the front brakes, these back ones are from an Insignia, and the reason for that is that they have a cable operated caliper rather than the BMW, which has an internal mini hub brake or drum brake inside the disc, which I couldn't see how to use. So yeah, I've made some adapter brackets, just a small piece of trimming to make them go on, and they seem to go on pretty well. So I'm going to the what I hope is the final phase for my brake adapter, so at the back, and I just need to use longer than these stumpy things bolts, which I've now got, and also I was using a couple of washers as a spacer, so I'd like that to be a permanent fixture. So I'm going to cut out a bit of metal and weld that onto the plate so it's there permanently, and that will be that, I hope. So let's go and do a bit of metal cutting. So these are the two washers I was using. If you put them together and compare with this piece of plate here, I think that's a pretty good match. So I just need to cut a couple of bits to sit on here and on here out of that. So I'll just do a little bit of cardboard templating. I think I'll draw around that. So it's going to be something like that. Now that's absolutely fine. Okay, time for the grinder. Got my PPE on. I do find this mask much easier than the goggles. Like that and like that. But of course I actually need 4. So I've made 4 of these, because of course there's 2 of those. 4 of these spacer things, which I'm going to weld on like that. And of course they need holes drilled in for the bolts to go through. Actually, that's this size. Anyway, for the bolts to go through. And don't forget, these aren't in any way structural welds. They're pretty much just fixed washers, spacers. So I'm going to cut a series of holes now in these so that the new bolts can go through them. Just bolt these together and weld them. Right, so here's my caliper bracket with 2 of these things fixed to it, and they will become permanent spacers. So I was going to weld those on. And here we are, both sides actually of the caliper adapters with the built-in spacer. That's all those are, built in. So, and it's the same thickness as these two washers were, and that's what was used to make them fit before. So that should go on straightforwardly, and hence they've had they've had some paint put on them. So just waiting for the paint to dry, and it can all go back together. Nice. Right, here's my bracket for the rear, and I've painted it as you see, but I'm just going to take the paint off because that's what the caliper mounts onto. I don't want the paint kind of wearing away, making the caliper loose. So I shall do that. Right, new nut. Yeah, not sure what happened to the other one. Anyway, right, bracket, and put the hub, oh, can't pick it up with one hand, oh. No, yes, so this is a obviously the original MGC stroke Gilbern hub, which has got a spacer which I had made, and a Vauxhall Insignia rear disc. And it's not a BMW 1 Series like the front one is, and that's because the equivalent BMW part has one of those built-in drum brakes, which I didn't want to use. So there we are. Okay, and here's my new longer mounting bolts for the calipers. And there we are. And this time there's no stack of washers. It's just perfect. Can you see that? Spacing between the disc and the caliper holder. Just right. So, put the wheel back on then. It also means my new bolts, which I wondered if they might be a bit long, in fact aren't. And there we have it. So, fully fitted up. I shall have to still sort out brake pipes and handbrake cable, of course. And there may need to be some bracketry welded on one of the trailing arms for that. But that's fine, I can cope with that. But yeah, So that's my caliper bracket at the back finished. And I've got the other one to put on, but there we are. So end of mini project.